I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere in my
Hello
dreams.
and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Thanks to Dr. Xanthe Mallet, a forensic criminologist based at the University of Newcastle in Australia, we were able to fine-tune the profiling we've already done even further by cross-referencing the traits of female serial killers with additional traits Dr. Mallet has found in the literature. Dr. Mallet highlights two sources that I feel are worth paying attention to. One is a book, Inside the Minds of Healthcare Serial Killers, Why They Kill, and that provides a checklist of 22 red flags for this particular group of killers. And there's a really fascinating epiphany that comes out of one of those red flags. The second is a research paper published 9 years ago, In Search of the Angels of Death, conceptualizing the contemporary nurse healthcare serial killer. And so let's start with the research paper published in 2014. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. According to my analytics, more than 60%, almost 2/3 of you who are watching my content aren't subscribed. That's certainly for the month of August. So I do want to encourage you to please subscribe. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So what we find in the research paper published in 2014 is that there are three basic categories of serial killer. There are sexual sadists, there are professional killers, basically hitmen, who are motivated by money and power, and then there are also custodial killers. Custodial killers are often healthcare workers who murder helpless or dependent people in their care. Now, I want to add to that custodial killers are also more likely women. So serial killers, female serial killers, are very likely to be custodial killers. The paper's author adds the following with reference to custodial killers. The most common examples include angel of death cases involving nurses in hospitals or nursing homes who surreptitiously murder ill or elderly patients, usually by asphyxiation or medication overdose. This group is likely to contain the highest number of female serial killers. Well, there it is. It goes on to note, it's likely the method of murder is linked to their profession. Healthcare workers have access to medications not available to others, as well as the knowledge to hide their crimes more effectively. Can you see how this is a kind of a hand-in-glove fit so far for Lucy? Now, according to an article in the publication The Conversation, Dr. Xanthe Mallet goes on to say, one research group studied 64 female serial killers in America between 1821 and 2008. That's a pretty comprehensive, a pretty thorough sample. And they found that nearly 40% of them worked in healthcare. And that is a statistic that we've already seen. We've seen something like that already, that virtually half of all female serial killers work in healthcare. Quite a insight, I think, into this area. The article continues, quote, but the question remains, why do they kill? If we look at women specifically, the 2014 research paper suggests that unlike men who murder as a result of predatory lust and or compulsive rage, women serial killers are typically driven by histrionic attention seeking or financial gain. Well, we know it's not for financial gain in Lucy's case. So attention-seeking seems to be part of the motive. Do you agree with that? The article continues, another research paper specifically studied the characteristics of 16 convicted healthcare serial killers, which the authors defined as nurses who have been convicted of at least 2 murders, which they have carried out within a hospital setting. So that's a really targeted sample, right? And so with it's a fairly small sample size, only 16, they nevertheless found that the traits were very corresponded very closely to Lucy. Most of them were female, 56%, and the average age of those being charged was 36 years. Now, it's important to be explicit that the age these women were caught was in their mid-30s, right? Their crime sprees could have gone on for years prior to this undetected. Also, Lucy was essentially finally caught and convicted. Everything ended when she was about 33 years of age. Also, according to this research, 44% killed between 5 and 9 victims before being caught, and 75% killed in only one location. And in a way, that's good news, because it suggests that the statistics seem to show that serial killers that they have a preferred area where they operate. And so this is good news, because it likely means that there aren't going to be other incidents in terms of Lucy Letby, certainly according to the statistics. Then the other thing that stands out, insulin was the most common method of murder, followed by muscle relaxant, right? Another thing that's interesting with the female custodial killer is that it's subtle. It doesn't include obvious violence as you would find with male serial killers or just male killers in general. And because of this subtle way of killing people, there's also the evidence is less obvious as well. Now let's return to Dr. Mallett's assessment of this information. She writes that Letby fits several of these characteristics. She's a woman, she's 33 years old, and she murdered 7 infants. She killed, as far as we currently know, in only one location, and she used insulin to murder some of her victims. So that is quite a few traits that match the general trends, the general traits in the samples that have been looked at. Now let's look at Mallett's second selection. She refers to a 2007 book, Inside the Minds of Healthcare Serial Killers, Why They Kill, and it provides a checklist of 22 red flags for this group of killers. Included in those 22 red flags are these 5. Number 1, secretive, difficult personal relationships. History of depression or mental instability. I don't know if that's so relevant. Number 3, higher incidence of death when they are on shift. Very relevant. Number 4, making colleagues anxious or suspicious. Well, we know that her colleagues were anxious or suspicious very early on. And then the final one, the 5th and final one, craving attention. And then, so Dr. Mallett then refers to how many of these do correspond. But the part that caught my attention was the apparent mismatch between someone who's a secretive person and someone craving attention. Think about that. A person who's struggling to have personal relationships and someone craving attention, you can see how that is going to create tension. Someone who's struggling with personal relationships, but they're also craving attention. They're probably craving attention either because the relationships they are having are secretive, or because they are having difficulty having the personal relationships that they want. So we know that Lucy was shy, withdrawn. I've described her as introverted. Many of you don't like that, but I would say that, well, what do you guys think? Do you think introverts have an easier time finding people in terms of friends and also romantic partners than extroverts? Which one do you think has an easier time? So, you have that aspect. And then we also know that Lucy was having difficulty in her personal relationships. We know that she couldn't seem to land a boyfriend, and she was 25, 26 years old, and there was basically no anecdotal evidence that she'd ever had a boyfriend. Not at school, not in college, and now not even in the work environment. People were saying, well, that was just a friendship. That is a heck of a long time not to have kind of a romantic relationship. Can you put up your hand and say you were never in any kind of romantic relationship until 25, 26 years old? I don't think many people could. The only romantic narrative that we can find is that she apparently had a crush on a married doctor, and obviously it was a secret. And that is where the rub is. That this thing that she so desperately needs, she wants to be in a relationship, she wants to be loved and cared for like many of us do. And then when she finds someone, it's got to be kept secret. Meanwhile, she's craving attention. And so that is going to create incredible tension. I'm craving attention. I'm desperate for the attention. I'm loving the attention when I do get it. But because it's secret, I can only get it at certain times. And because it's an affair, I can only get this. I can only open that tap a little bit over here and a little bit over there. And I'm so thirsty for more of this validating feeling, for more of this warm, fuzzy, validating sense of being alive, But I think the critical question is, where does this craving of attention comes from? What do you think is the source of craving attention? Now, folks from other YouTube channels have been spilling over into my comment section, regurgitating that old staple in true crime explanations, the one-size-fits-all label for everything, narcissism. So let me ask you, do you think Lucy committed her crimes because she's a narcissist? If she craved attention and she committed her crimes because she craved attention, did she commit murder because she's a narcissist? Are people who crave attention narcissists? And is the narcissism label an acceptable explanation to you for Lucy's motive? Is it an acceptable explanation for why she did what she did? I'd be interested to know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.